All right, so without further ado then, if anyone else, as long as anyone else doesn't have anything that they want to share, I will go ahead and introduce our speaker for tonight. So tonight we're going to hear from Jose DosSantos. Jose is a protective security advisor for Region 2 of the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, or CISA. Jose is going to give us a basic 101 introduction on the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, its protective service security advisor program, and how CISA can support and help critical infrastructure and the private sector. So in full disclosure, I've met and worked with Jose a little bit recently. He's a great guy and brings a lot of knowledge. And he's going to tell us a little bit about the program and what he's doing at CISA, and again, how he can work between public and private enterprises. Jose, I'm going to turn it over to you. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to mute everybody. And Jose, you just unmute yourself. And I'm going to make you the host.
Sounds good.
Okay, Jose, it should be yours. You should be able to share your screen.
Okay, everyone. Craig, if you just let me know when my PowerPoint is displayed.
Yep, that's it right there. I see it.
Okay, great. Thank you. So first off, I just want to say thank you to Craig and Antoinette for the invitation for today and the opportunity to speak with this chapter. I'll also extend a thank you to the entire board and the chapter for the opportunity. As Craig mentioned, I'm here today just to give a basic overview of the agency, Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, and my role as a protective security advisor. A little quick background on myself. I started with CISA about 2 years ago now, October of 2019. Before that, I spent over 12 years working in FEMA Region 2, responding to disasters, chasing hurricanes around the country. Decided after that much time, it was time to move on and try a different function within the department. So I'm here today talk about CISA and our programs. Many of you have probably heard of CISA probably in the last year or so. Quick history on CISA. The agency itself is fairly new in its current evolution. However, the agency itself has been around, or the functions that we perform has been around since 2003 when the department was first founded. It was called a different name, the National Protection Programs Directorate, NPPD. Since then, we've been working closely with the private sector, state, local, tribal, territory partners to build physical and cyber resiliency into our organizations throughout the nation. So we call ourselves the nation's risk advisor. We bring to the table free, no strings attached resources for all of our partners, which include assessments, training, education, research, as well as exercise support. We help build personal relationships and connections with others in the industry and government, and we tailor what we have, all the programs that we have and the support that we provide to meet your needs so that we can help strengthen your capabilities, hopefully getting to a tipping point that helps make our nation's critical infrastructure stronger, more secure, and resilient. We can help you get information into the hands of decision makers, which will hopefully help mitigate risk and to better understand challenges that we all face. No organization is too big or too small. We work with everyone from small businesses to large multinational, international corporations, and like I said, government organizations across the spectrum. We're here to help you to be proactive and to take a preventive approach to your physical and cybersecurity needs. As the nation's risk advisor, we work with partners to defend against today's threats and collaborate to build more secure, resilient infrastructure, as I've said, for the future. The threats we face today, both digital and physical, man-made, technological, and natural, have become more complex, and the threat actors are more diverse than at any point in our history. CISA is at the heart of mobilizing a collective defense as we lead the nation's efforts to understand and manage risk to our critical infrastructure. Our partners in the mission space span the public and private sector. Programs and services we provide are driven by an understanding of the risk environment and the corresponding needs identified by our stakeholders. Basically, we don't know what we don't know, which is why we put such an emphasis on coming out to local communities, coming out and meeting with our stakeholders and partners to develop an understanding of not only the identification of critical infrastructure, but what those potential vulnerabilities could be that they're facing, so that we can help develop the mitigating factors to help reduce that risk and to develop the measures to mitigate those threats. We seek to help organizations better manage risk and increase resiliency using all available resources, whether provided by the federal government, commercial vendors, or even their own capabilities. So from helping to secure the COVID-19 supply chain to supporting free and fair elections, we coordinate security and resilience efforts using trusted partnerships, which is one of the reasons I'm here today, to help begin to develop those partnerships within the area. We also work to deliver technical assistance and assessments to federal stakeholders, as well as critical infrastructure owners and operators nationwide. We also deliver insights on these assessments related to current capabilities to identify potential gaps or vulnerabilities, which, along with an examination of emerging technologies, help determine the demand for future capabilities, both near and long term. We do this work across 16 sectors, everything from water to power to healthcare, communications. During COVID, we expanded our cross-sector work and help partners better understand cascading impacts, particularly on the supply chain front. So a couple quick examples during the last 2 years that we've all gone through as we responded to the COVID situation. If we all remember at the beginning of the COVID response, where things started to shut down, there was a big push and need for food and agriculture to shift manufacturing from restaurant or large scale packaging, for example. You know, the environment prior to COVID, most families, most individuals would go out to eat at a restaurant or buy large packaging. But as we needed to shift, as things closed down and more folks were staying home, taking grocery deliveries at home and going to the grocery stores, there had to be a shift in the packaging and the manufacturing of the food and agricultural commodities and products from that large scale bulk packaging to smaller scale. And as manufacturing started to slow down in some sectors, you know, there were some blips in the supply chain with the availability of tin, for example, as they went to small scale manufacturing and packaging. You know, so the availability of tin became a concern. We worked with the industry and across the sectors to manage some of that. Another example is as commodities and products started to, again, slow down in their production, things like soft drinks. You would never think that production of soft drink might have an impact on infrastructure. However, one of the byproducts of the production of soft drinks, including even alcoholic beverages, is the production of CO2, carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is used by some water treatment facilities in their processing of cleaning the water and sanitizing their water, processing the water for drinking water. So as the production of soft drinks slow down, so did the production of CO2, which created supply chain issues for the water treatment facilities. So that just gives an example of how these cascading impacts can be very widespread across not only a geographic region like Region 2, but also the nation has production halts, and there were issues with production at different stages. So we've started to think about the importance of preparing for these possibilities, even if they have low probability, and to start to think nationally about the functionality of these possibilities. We've developed numerous relationships with partners across, again, the federal, state, local, territory, tribal governments, private sector, nonprofits, on and on, to better understand and manage that risk to our nation's critical infrastructure, creating a more secure and resilient infrastructure as a whole for the American people.
Jose, I'm just going to interrupt you for 1 second.
Sure.
If anyone has any questions, I have the chat box up. I'm monitoring it, so just throw your questions in there, and I'll break in a couple minutes if I see any questions pop up.
Great. And please feel free at any point, if you'd like to have a discussion with any information I'm providing, please feel free to jump in and we can stop the briefing at that point. So to the organization of CISA, while I'm based in Region 2, and Region 2 covers, you can see on the slide here, New York, New Jersey, as well as Puerto Rico and Virgin Islands. CISA as an organization does follow the same FEMA regions, and that's how we're structured and organized. However, we're further broken up within the region into districts. So as Craig mentioned, I'm from the New York City district, which covers all 5 boroughs, as well as the 4 counties immediately north. So Westchester, Rockland, Putnam, and Orange counties. We also have PSAs throughout the rest of the region. So we have a PSA in Albany, which covers the northern counties from Dutchess to Sullivan, Ulster, all the way up to the Canadian border. We have a PSA in Syracuse, which covers central New York, as well as a PSA in Buffalo, which covers western New York. In addition to that, we have 2 PSAs dividing the state of New Jersey into northern and southern district. And then currently we have a PSA in Puerto Rico covering Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. And you can see that we have PSAs throughout the country dividing up each of the regions further into those districts. So if you have organizations that are in other states, we can also link you with PSAs in that local area to discuss it and the services or assistance that we can provide. So as we look at the threats to the critical infrastructure, as I said earlier, the risk environment affecting critical infrastructure is complex and uncertain. Threats and vulnerabilities, as well as consequences, have evolved over the last 10 years, as you all know. Being members of Asis, we've seen the evolution of some of these threats and vulnerabilities throughout the years. Another example, critical infrastructure that has long been subject to risks associated with physical threats and natural disasters are now increasingly exposed to cyber risks, which stems from the growing integration of information and communications technologies with critical infrastructure operations and an adversary focus on exploiting those potential cyber vulnerabilities. This has led to the convergence of cyber and physical security. The way I like to talk about this convergence is, if we look at a organization that may have Fort Knox-like security, there's no way that an adversary could potentially gain access through physical means into that facility. However, they might have a Wi-Fi node that doesn't have a password on it, which is leaving them completely wide open to a cyber attack. Right? An adversary can gain access to their systems through that open Wi-Fi, just as an example. But also on the other side of that, an organization that might have Fort Knox-like security on their cyber infrastructure, all of that could be for naught if their server room is unsecured, completely unlocked. Again, as another example where someone can come in and plug in a thumb drive. So now their cybersecurity may be completely locked down, but not having that physical security aspect allows access into the networks as well. So we really have to take a holistic approach when we look at the convergence now of physical and cyber. And as we talk about even our security systems, we all know camera systems are all connected now to the internet, allowing their control systems to be virtually controlled, brings the vulnerabilities from the physical side as well as the cyber side. These growing interdependencies across the systems that control our infrastructure, particularly in information and communications technologies, have only increased the vulnerabilities across the range of physical and cyber threats. So as we look at the National Infrastructure Protection Plan, which was last updated in 2013, there's currently an update that's being worked on, draws on existing structures and partnerships to promote an inclusive partnership framework that integrates at all levels of government, private, and non-private sectors. It recognizes the unique expertise and capabilities of each participant and reflects the key role and knowledge of critical infrastructure owners and operators to address today's all-hazards risk environment. And this is where, as a PSA, as CISA, an organization comes in to work all of these partners and stakeholders to bring that holistic approach that we have not only a better understanding of what the critical infrastructure is, but also those vulnerabilities so that we can work towards mitigating those risks.
Jose, can I ask a quick question?
Absolutely.
So obviously, I think everyone's probably aware of the Colonial Pipeline hack that made the news a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
And obviously, your presentation and CISA's involvement in infrastructures is very broad scope. What do you see as some of the highest risks right now? Is it the pipeline system, or are there other utilities and infrastructure systems that have a higher priority than others now, or is it kind of a, we deal with things on a case-by-case basis?
Right. That's I'll be perfectly honest. It's a very difficult question to answer, only because the threats are coming from so many different sides. You mentioned the Columbia pipeline, but then also a couple of months ago we had an incident, if you remember in the news, in Florida, where a wastewater treatment facility was being targeted and was actually breached. The banking industry historically has been at risk for some time. They've developed some programs to better their resiliency, but to be perfectly honest, the threats are coming from everywhere. So there's really not one specific sector, one specific industry to say is at most risk. Even when we look at small businesses, the proliferation right now of ransomware, we've seen small businesses, mom and pop shops being targeted because they're, number one, an easy target, but also they may not have the capability, the infrastructure in place to best protect themselves. And from our adversaries' point of view, that makes them an easy target, right? You have a small business that's completely reliant on their business for taking care of their family, but don't have the resources to put in place the cybersecurity that they really need to protect themselves. They're hit with a ransomware attack, and now their entire livelihood is at risk. So they have to make that difficult choice of paying the ransom to get their data back. So, again, I wish I could point to one specific industry or area and say, yeah, we're really focusing on the transportation sector or the aviation sector or whatever the case is. But we really have to take that step back and secure pretty much everything. The old adage, right, that the bad guys only need to be successful one time.
Sure.
The good guys have to be successful all the time.
Right.
So and it really is the case that it's just so widespread now, and it seems as every time you go into the news, you see another organization has been hit by a ransomware, by some other cyber attack. So again, we all have to take those measures to protect ourselves, because the days of thinking that I'm not on anybody's radar, I'm too small a company,
sure,
or I have the latest and greatest antivirus program, I'm protected. But those days really aren't here anymore, right? So we really have to make sure that we are robust enough in our programs to protect ourselves from all angles.
Thanks. I think that's a great answer. I don't see any other questions in the chat, so I'll just I'll stop in a few more slides if I see anything come
Sure.
up.
Okay, great. Just want to give everyone an opportunity there. And like I said, at any point, if anyone has any questions, please jump in. So coming now to the Protected Security Advisors, the program that I'm currently in. PSA program's primary mission is to proactively engage with federal, state, local, tribal, territorial government mission partners, as well as private sector, nonprofits, and members of the entire stakeholder community to protect critical infrastructure. Again, it's the reason I'm here today, to not only introduce myself as the local representative for CISA Region 2, that's covering portions of the Hudson Valley, but also as the bigger PSA program, to be that local contact, that individual that, when we look at other government programs, unfortunately, it's sometimes hard, difficult to get in touch with folks when support is needed. But my main goal, my main purpose is to be that local point of contact and be available to provide the guidance and assessment support, or any of the support that we can offer up from CISA. The regional directors of each of the regions oversee and manage the CISA PSA program in their respective region, while PSAs facilitate that local field activity, as I mentioned, in coordination with other DHS offices. So not only are we, as a PSA, providing the resources and capabilities that we have within our own program, we also have that reach back capability to other federal agencies' programs. And we'll go into some examples in a little bit, but when we talk about information sharing, which is one of the main services that we provide, we can work with other agencies, law enforcement, FBI, for example, our Office of Intelligence and Assessments, which provides DHS intelligence programs. If there's information out there that needs to be disseminated, or if there's a question that maybe is related to an incident that we see on the news, as a local PSA contact, I can work with those other agencies to get that information and share it with those that are with that information. PSAs have 5 critical mission areas that directly support the protection of critical infrastructure. We conduct voluntary, non-regulatory security surveys and assessments on critical infrastructure assets and facilities within our regions. We also conduct outreach activities with critical infrastructure owners, operators, community groups, faith-based organizations, all in support of infrastructure protection priorities, sharing essential information when necessary to protect the infrastructure, as I mentioned. We also support federal, state, local officials responsible for special events. So in the planning, leading up to a special event, we can work with coordinating other federal resources that might be available to support that special event, or just being available during the event, should anything happen, to have that capability to reach back and provide the resources, or even identify the resources that might be needed to respond. We'll also plan for and, when directed, deploy to unified area command groups, joint operations centers. We work very closely with FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency. We'll deploy to the Regional Response Coordination Center, state, local emergency operations centers, all in response to natural and man-made disasters. We also work in conjunction with our partners and stakeholders by coordinating training and providing educational materials to our partners to assist them in deterring, detecting, preventing, protecting against, and responding to security threats. As I said, we'll go into this in another slide, but some of the training that we provide and offer includes improvised explosive device detection, active shooter events, things of those nature. So as I said, the PSA program and really CISA, all CISA programs within the physical and cyberspace are non-regulatory, non-enforcement, and there is no direct funding available. We do have a regulatory portion, our chemical security, the program, but that is a separate program that works specifically with organizations that have large amounts of chemicals that are regulated. So they work under the regulatory space. However, PSAs are not regulatory or enforcement. In fact, we work under a program called the Protected Critical Infrastructure Information, PCII. This is a congressionally, it's actually a legislation that was passed by Congress that protects information that is shared with PSAs, shared with CISA, from Freedom of Information Act disclosure requests, any state, local, tribal, territorial disclosure laws. Also, if there's a type of civil litigation, there's a situation with regulatory purposes. Any information that is shared with a PSA, with CISA during any of our programs is protected under the PCII program. It's not allowed to be disseminated or shared or divulged through any of these requests or other requirements. So I mentioned that for the purposes of ensuring our stakeholders and our partners that, if I were to come out and do a security assessment of a facility and we discuss potential vulnerabilities or discuss options for consideration for any observations that are made, that information is really regarded as a client, we'll say client attorney privilege type of example, where if a Freedom of Information Act request is made specifically for that vulnerability information or for anything that's discussed with us, with PSAs, that information by law cannot be released and is not subject to any FOIA requests. As I mentioned earlier, information sharing. So again, we can reach back to any of our partners if there is a situation where an organization needs to have information because they're currently in the midst of a cyber attack, for example. We have that capability to reach back and provide information that might be available. We also have several programs, the Homeland Security Information Network, a web-based portal that's available for anyone to sign up for, which is a sharing platform. Once you're approved for membership and providing an account, you can log on and join various sector groups, and information is shared through this portal. So that provides suspicious activity reports, for example, or during an event, there might be operational information shared on status of the response. So that's one portal that's available for information sharing. Through the Office of Bomb Prevention under CISA, we also have Tripwire, which is another information sharing program that's available for organization stakeholders to sign up for and receive information. And then, of course, sharing security best practices, all coming through the partnerships that we've developed. Getting into some of the specific capabilities that we provide. First, I'll touch on infrastructure surveys, which is basically our vulnerability assessment. We use something called the infrastructure survey tool, which is a web-based vulnerability survey tool that what that is every organization that we've gone to, we collect data, all anonymized, so there's no attribution to specific agencies, but we look at the information that we've been able to collect and use that to share those security best practices and also provide a standing of security posture. So some of the facilities that we've been to across sectors, like I said, wastewater treatment facilities, private organizations, financial institutions, even commercial facilities, faith-based organizations, synagogues, churches. The survey that we're able to produce takes a look at the physical security of the organization, the security force, security management, as well as their information sharing programs, protective measures that they might have in place. But then we also look at the dependencies so that we can develop a resiliency profile. And what I mean by dependencies are things like if there's a backup generator on site, or if there is a dependency on a certain chemical, if you're a manufacturing facility, talking through and understanding what those dependencies are so that we can understand if there's a sole provider of one of these dependencies, if there's only one power company, or if there's only one water line coming into the facility, if something were to happen that disrupts that dependency, is there a backup in place so that the organization continues to operate? So again, going back to that holistic approach that we take, we're not only looking at the physical security, cybersecurity aspects, but also the business continuity aspect of the organization so that they can continue their operations in the time of a disaster or something like that. At the completion of the survey, in the report that we provide, we also provide access to a web-based portal, which gives that information to the organization that we're working with. And you can see here on the slide the scores that are provided. And what I mentioned before, collecting the data from the organizations that we work with, that provides the capability to look at the standing across the sector. What we found has become useful from the surveys is that it can be used as a business case justification. So in an organization, for example, we all know sometimes it's difficult to make a case for improving security because from a business standpoint, how is improving security directly related to the profit of the organization? So we've been talking with all the security directors that we have talked with over the many years that we've been doing this. We continue to see that frustration. Right? A security director wants to improve the security because it'll be for the betterment of the entire organization, but they sometimes run into that challenge of justifying that cost. So in working with them and developing the survey and the report that we can provide a view of where they stand based on averages across their industry. So a manufacturing facility, for example, all the manufacturing facilities that we've worked with, after we've anonymized that data, we can provide an average standing. So you see here on this on the screen the overall PMI, for example. The dots represent where the facility is currently standing based on the survey that we've conducted, and then it gives them that comparison of the highest as well as the lowest, and then it gives them the average of where they stand. There is also a feature where you can generate a scenario. So again, going back to that business case justification, creating a scenario will show if you make these improvements or if you install these systems, whatever the case is, it will show how your score will be adjusted. So that can be used in that justification. You know, this is where we are now, based on our industry. You know, compared to our industry, this is where we are on the high-low average. And if we make these improvements, this is where we'll stand after making those improvements. Moving on to training and exercise support, we have everything from active shooter response, running through the Run Hide Fight program. We can come out and provide training, now in person, now that everything is starting to open up again, but we also do webinar-based training for employees, for organizations. On the cybersecurity side, we have NICS education, industrial control systems training. One of the industrial control system training that we do actually takes the students and has them go through an exercise where they build out their ICS program, and there's a scenario where it shows how the program is affected if someone were to break into the system, and how easy it is to gain access. So that gives them hands-on training to show how they need, how they can better protect their control systems. We can also provide tabletop exercise support, all hazards preparedness and training. We have an all hazards preparedness and training tool, which provides sample situation manuals, provides an exercise planner guidance, and all this is available to our website. And it's also information that I can share. If anyone needs that, you can contact me. I'll have my email and phone number at the end. And then I mentioned the Office of Bomb and Prevention. Their program has diverse curriculum available, everything from IED awareness, and provides explosive device awareness, to developing bomb threat scenarios. How does a security force respond to a phone call that comes in, for example. We also have surveillance detection program, which is personally, I think, one of the better training programs that we have. We actually take folks through a 3-day course, teach them about surveillance detection, and then bring in actors and run them through a live scenario to see if they can identify someone that may be performing surveillance on the facility. Then talking about domestic incidents and special events, as I said, we provide support during these incidents. We will deploy with FEMA to the disaster area. We'll provide that support during an operations center activation. One quick example over the past year from the COVID situation, we had an organization that approached us that was providing I'll say medical supplies to the stand-up hospitals, or to the stand-up facilities that were being implemented to respond to the COVID situation. They were in a situation where, because of all the added measures that they had to take to decontaminate their trucks, the additional measures of doing extra cleaning, things like that, it was adding a significant amount of time to their ability to deliver these commodities. So we worked with them, and we discussed the situation with them. We then reached back to our partners, and we were able to come up with a waiver system where these trucks that normally weren't able to transport through certain areas, we're able to receive a waiver and work with law enforcement in the local area to provide them access to these areas so that they can actually reduce the amount of time that it took them to make these deliveries. So obviously, the less time it takes for them to make those deliveries, the more deliveries they were able to make, and the more commodities and health items that they were able to deliver to respond to the COVID situation. So that's just one example of how we work with all of our partners to develop a response to a vulnerability that was discovered. On the cyber side, we also have an entire cadre of cybersecurity advisors that offer assistance to help prepare and protect private sector entities and state, tribal, territorial governments from cybersecurity threats. Our CSAs, again on the cyber side, cybersecurity advisors promote cybersecurity preparedness, risk mitigation, incident response capabilities, all working to engage stakeholders through partnership and direct assistance activities. Some of the services that they can provide include on-site meetings to answer questions, exchange ideas and information, and address concerns about cybersecurity, work to promote best practices, resources, partnership experiences. So if an organization is looking to enhance their cybersecurity program or even develop a cybersecurity program if they don't already have one in place, our CSAs are available to come and discuss this with them to help guide them through that process so that they can implement some of these cybersecurity best practices. Also provide strategic messaging, so they can do this through briefings, keynotes, panel discussions, all designed to improve the cybersecurity awareness and an organization's posture. They also provide cyber assessments, just like we do on the physical security side. There are cybersecurity assessments that can be done by our CSAs. The cyber infrastructure survey, the equivalent of the physical security survey that I discussed earlier, focuses on over 80 cybersecurity controls within 5 domains, which provides an interactive decision support resource. They can conduct cyber resilience review, which is a strategic evaluation that assesses cybersecurity management capabilities as well as maturity, and how that applies to protecting the critical information technology services. They can do external dependency management assessments, which looks at the management activities and practices utilized to identify, analyze, and reduce risks arising from third-party vendors. And then they can also do incident coordination and support, which are all activities to facilitate cyber incident response and coordinate information requests during times of increased threat, disruption, and attack. So as Craig asked earlier, the Colonial Pipeline, our CSAs were working with the Colonial organization as well as governmental agencies to help identify what was going on and help resolve the situation. And in a nutshell, I think 20, 25 minutes or so, that's the organization. CISA as an organization, and myself as a PSA, just a small overview of what we can provide and some of the support that is available to you. And as I mentioned earlier, as a government agency, it's all free. It's already been paid for by tax dollars, so there's no cost associated with any of the programs and capabilities that we have available to support. So,
Great, Jose. Thank you so much. Does anybody have any questions? I don't see any questions in the chat box that came up. Does anybody have any off-the-cuff questions that they want to throw out?
Yeah, 2 things. First, is John Durkin still involved with the Protective Security Advisor program?
He is, Carlos. He's actually our regional director. He's the big boss for Region 2.
Yeah, so I worked with John back in the NYPD days. So if you ever speak to him, just give him my regards.
Will do. Will do.
And the second thing is that on the Major League Baseball side, stadium operators are strongly encouraged to utilize the services that Protective Security Advisors have to offer. I don't know how many do, but I know that there's always a push to get them involved.
So I will offer, we have in the past done work with some sports teams, I'll say, in the New York City area. So absolutely, that's a great point. And there's a whole nother aspect to the sports arena, the SAFE Act, which provides provides support as well, and some regulations that have to be followed. So that is something that we can work with the organizations to help manage some of the requirements under that.
Jose, I think one of the things that you said that always sticks with me is you guys don't know what you don't know, and I think that's so true for coming from the public sector and for those in the chapter in the private sector, and who used to probably be in the public sector. It's really forging those relationships, right? Like before something happens, and realizing in this day and age, like your answer to the question about Colonial Pipeline, the vectors are so vast at this point, from the physical side to the cyber side. So a combination, and it's really trading those business cards, on a blue sky day before something happens, and having those relationships in place to handle something should something happen. So I think it's great. I think that was a great amount of information, and I would encourage anybody to reach out to Jose. Again, get his contact information and make those connections, because from firsthand experience, he's definitely been a wealth of knowledge, and I certainly look forward to working with him and CISA in the future. So any other questions from anybody?
Thank you, Craig. Appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I don't see any other questions. I don't see anything else in the chat. So I guess at this point, I'm going to end it. Thank you everyone for stopping in tonight, and hopefully you learned something new. And we will see you, I guess, for the next meeting. Actually, I'm not sure. I guess I'll check with Antoinette when the next one actually is going to be. So again, if you haven't signed up for the fishing trip, that's on the website. Thank you, Charles, for posting that today. So the sign up is up there. And with that, I guess everyone have a good rest of the night, and we'll see you soon.